Sean Ramsey, a conversation with Hollis Clifton.
Sean Ramsey, leader, arranger, Old Tech Steel Orchestra. I am a past member of the VAT-19 Fund Play. That is where I started. Past student, Pleasantville Senior Comprehensive, now known as Pleasantville Secondary. Right. Well, presently I'm now a member of the Fun Play All Stars, a group that was started with a group of fellows who have made a valid contribution to the band Fun Play. I'm a part of that group as well, under the direction of Darren Shepherd and Roger Charles and some other guys that you will know very, very, very much. So that's where we are with regards to a little small idea for where I would have started. Coming from Cedros back in 1982 with a strong background of percussion, I would have come into the steel band arena back in the late 80s when I entered secondary school. But I always had that great admiration and love for drumming. So when I get into the secondary school, it was easy for me to move from one part of the arts to the next part. So getting into secondary school, I met Miss Conyat, who was my teacher at San Fernando East Junior Sec, and she would have recognized that I could have played the drum at a very early stage, and I would have done some little, not much, little work in San Fernando East when they had little programs and things together with Darrell Webb, who was on the afternoon shift and the morning shift. So both of us used to, meet and do our thing, like if they have a little program and whatnot.
Collaboration.
Yeah, collaboration. If they have something, they will call me and they'll ask, for us to do something and whatnot. So that would have started in that particular circle. Nothing with pan, more or less in San Fernando, it's more drumming. Right? When I move on to Pleasantville Senior Comprehensive, went with Richardson, Roger Charles, and a group of other senior members, as they were referred to at that time. They had something called an audition, I remember that. And they were auditioning people to play different instruments, and they were asking people who have the experience and whatnot. And so it came down to the congas, and I say I went into, not knowing to play pan, I say let me go into the pan room and see if, they'll have any instrument that, that I'll be able to, play. And when I saw the congas, I moved one time, and they asked me if I could play it and whatnot, and they had an audition, and the rest is history. Right? So from that time there in 1986, at Pleasantville Senior Comprehensive, I started to play the congas for the Steel Orchestra, Pleasantville steel orchestra, and would have started to develop myself over the years, you know, going on a pan, learning to play the tenor, yes, and doing my thing on my own, but still stay with the congas. So when we moved in, when we all went across the Fontclair, you understand, a good bit of us, you know, at that particular time then, who went across the Fontclair, I started to play a 4-bass, right? And I would have stayed on the 4-bass on the stage side, and still, you know, have a great love for my instrument, continue to play it, and because of the idea that I have that good knowledge of the instrument, I was asked in '89 by Wentworth and Darren and some of these others to play the congas for the Pan Ramsey competition, where Fontclair won for the first time. We tied with Summer Richards at that competition at Exeter Spaniard, where we played Ken Professor sifting through the notes and a tune arranged by Wentworth and Curtis Marcel, together I think with Dwight Belgrove.
Sleepy?
Yeah, Sleepy. They arranged a Kitchener tune, I think it was Symphony in G or something, my memory served me right. We won the competition anyhow. I know Summer Richards was the other band that you know. Right? So since that competition, anything that, you know, with regards to like, you know, soft jazz and things, they will call me, move me from my 4-bass, you know, within the stage side to come and, you know, to add that flavor. 1990 was the next special year. I remember learning my tune on the 4-bass normal, and the professor would have found at the time, you know, it's dropping and whatnot, and they started to call out my name, and eventually they called me and asked me to play the congas that year. They left my pan home, and I continue on the congas for the whole Panorama season for Pan by Storm, right? So Pan by Storm, I didn't play a pan. I ended up playing the congas, holding the timing for the band. So I continued, you know, trying to elevate myself, you know, during those years, you know. Would have been borrowing a pan from Fontclair, going home, doing my own thing, in a little quiet, try something on my own, you know. Some of the guys that, you know, would have given me that early encouragement, whether in Roger Charles and Curtis Marcel, because one of the things that we used to do a lot is after practicing Fontclair, a few of us would have stayed back and do our own thing. And that's how it started, you know. You started to experiment, you know, you go on a bass, you started to pick out some notes and whatnot, and you know. And eventually, that's how it started, you know. What I would have done too, you know, every so often I would have borrowed a tenor from Fontclair, go home, practice on my own, and at that particular time, I met Mr. Torrance Mohammed, deceased, yes, and he started to take me along with him to things like San Fernando JC's Carrie Vogue program, things in Nakarima Bowl and whatnot. I would have played the anthem and do some little solos and things. So that would have brought some kind of bravery and started to help me develop more on the tenor, right? So I started to do my thing on my own, you know, trying to pick out my little music and whatnot, and in 1993, you know, still playing with Fontclair, played with Fontclair that year for Panorama. I also ran away and played with Antillian All Stars. Dwight had arranged for that for Antillian that year, Pan in Your Pan. Yeah. But I mean, you know, in them days, you know, we've seen it a little more pronounced now, where fellas would have played with other bands. I played with other bands too, you know, but you know, you know, when you're with a band like Fontclair, you have to concrete your position. You understand? You try to, you know, to play with some other bands and things, but still, you're doing it, but you're going to help our brother. Like, for instance, you know, we would have helped Professor down by Panasonic and some of the other bands that he would have arranged for. But, you know, if one of us, you know, Dwight went up by Antillian that year. I'm trying to remember if it was his first year. And he arranged for Antillian All Stars in '93. I went up and I gave him a pull-out. I played a double seconds. So I had a double seconds, so a tenor. I played up there. And after the Panorama, Antillian All Stars, the leader of that band that year was a guy called Brian Robinson, right? Fireman. He's still around, you know. He was a Pantry Migo executive, you know, some years ago too. He's a guy you would have known a lot on his stage, the stage crew. Every carnival you will see him on the stage crew with Pantry Migo. But he was the captain of the band at that day. And Brian was living on Funroe Street around that time. He called me and he said, Sean, we have no arranger for the road. Dwight done the music for Panorama and he's not around. And we have nobody to do music for Antillian All Stars to come on the road, 1993. So he asked me if I will take it up to come and, you know, do the music, because I had now started to do nothing, you know.
Antillian All Stars, was it before Juicy or after Juicy's sponsorship?
That was long after Juicy. Yeah, we're talking about 1993, you know, that year, you know, some professor would have done some music with them. I think it was 90, and you know, after that, you know, the band was on a rebound, so different arrangements would have passed through, and Dwight would have happened to get the break that particular year, you know. So they asked me to do the music for the road, and I went up there Carnival Sunday, and I did some music, you know, road music. I remember one piece of music come back to mind, you know. It was Wo Donkey by United Sisters. I remember that was one of the more popular tunes that year. I did that tune for them, and two other tunes. I think I did a bomb tune. They had a bomb competition. I can't remember the bomb tune. Right? So they went on the road for Juve with those tunes. And Carnival Monday night, that said year, he called me back earlier on in the afternoon. He said, well, we don't have a tune for the old-time Calypso competition tonight. He said, come up there, yeah, I'll have the band ready at the corner of Drayton Street from around 5, 6 o'clock. Come up there and you all could come and do something. So when I came up there around that time, the players was already there, as he said. And come to mind what tune to do it. So I came up with a Deputy Essential, Penguin. Yeah. So I went on a tenor, started to pull it out one time. So happened, a very touching memory. When Fontclair didn't come on the road that night. Carnival Monday, 1993. And some of the fellas, they noticed I doing the music and whatnot, and started to come and learn the tune. I remember one going on a double tenor, one, you know, right? I remember a guy, God bless his soul, a fellow by the name of Hines Roscoe. Roscoe at that particular point, you know, a little more experience than me in the pan world. Roscoe came one time and he realized what I was trying to do, and he went on a guitar pan and he started to take out the chords. So eventually, you know, everything started working in place. I just put down some other chords like for the cellos and do the bass work and whatnot. And before you know it, Antillian All Stars was on the road, getting ready. Them days was not Food Basket, was nowhere there. It was the old ice factory. And the old ice factory, which they had the competition. Yeah, so from Drayton Street corner, we now learn Deputy Essential and a few other bands in San Fernando. Well, Fontclair didn't come out that night. A few other bands in San Fernando going down the road in that old-time competition. We placed fourth. So that was a nice, you know, a first time. you know, coming down the road, and, you know, from there we played there and we went straight down the road. As you know, in San Fernando those days, you have to go down, come back up High Street and then back to Carib Street, you know. So that was my first experience, my first shot as a arranger was, you know, so I really, and a lot of people didn't know that the first break that I would have got was with Antillean All Stars on the road in 1993, right? And I must say hats off to Brian Robinson for giving me that break, because it would have put things in a, you know, a perspective to give me that bravery to move on, because 93 was a great, you know, a great year with me with regards to the year when I started to really do some serious arranging, because after the carnival, I teamed up with a guy called Kerry Blackman, and I came back to my old school and we started to work, all right? Started to build back the band. Band was, you know, not functional, and we started to build back the band. He realized that we have some missing links, and he went by Hatters.
So when you say old school,
it's Pleasantville, yeah, Pleasantville Secondary, Pleasantville Senior Comprehensive. I came back. Yeah, San Minister Amy was the acting principal at that time, and he recognized that the band needed to do some building back, and we started to build back the band. You know, the band went to different shows that we would have in San Fernando, and, you know, we got called for the youth rally in Exodus Spaniard, and we started to build back the band. And that said year, you understand, 1993, while I was doing that, Calomo Kings called me, right? Heard about me, and they called me, and deceased Matthew Roach and Kenneth Placid, who's still around, you know. They asked me to do the Panorama J music, right, for the band that year. The band was going to Panorama J. So I went in and I did the music for Calomo Kings to go to Panorama J in 1993. They didn't make the final because, yeah, they didn't even make the semi-final, but they were pretty good, right? I did Raising Dust by deceased Godwin Bowen and Chuckman Jr.'s That Feels So Good. So I did those two pieces of music with Calomo Kings in 1993 for the Panorama J competition. Later on that year, I teamed up with my former schoolmate. You understand, he came back because, you understand, I asked him to come back because I realized that, you know, based on my experience, I wasn't all that versed yet. So Roger Charles and myself, we started Somebody by Baron, and we went to the 1993 Junior Music Festival with the assistance of Miss Lorna Conyat, who did the test piece that year. And Pleasantville went to the National Junior Music Festival, where we placed 6th in the finals, right? So that was our next stepping stone, yeah, so with regards to the build up to my arranging, you know, career, you know. So from 93, starting on the road with Antillean All Stars, I would have built myself into a small, you know, start as an arranger from that study year, right? The first year I arranged for a panorama competition, national panorama competition, was 1994, when Calomo Kings gave me the break, and I did a tune called Earthquake, Lord Kitchener, right? So in those days, you know, well, more or less, you know, you're now starting to try to build yourself as an arranger, right? So I more or less, you know, try to get, you know, keep the band going, you know, the band wasn't all that big that year, you know, and we went through the preliminary round, and that was it, you know. I stayed with Calomo Kings for about 2 or 3 years after that, and Claude Byron good friend of mine because I would have known Claude Byron since 1989 when we went down by Panasonic to help them with Crow. And Claude Byron asked me to come into Panasonic and start to work with Panasonic Connection. So I started to work with Panasonic on a more permanent basis, move away from Colombo Kings. We had all misunderstandings, I moved on, no problem, because it's in steel band, these things happen. So I had moved out of Colombo Kings and I went across to Panasonic Connection. I would have stayed with them as the drill master for the band for, 97, 98. I was drill the band, but in those days, you had something called San Fernando Panorama. San Fernando Panorama was a panorama started by Mr. Gerard Ferreira. He was the mayor. He recognized that after Panorama, most of the bands in San Fernando, you understand, he say at that time he found that a lot of the bands in San Fernando was getting a raw deal. So he found that, he would have kept some of the bands and them would have not make it easy. It's either fun, play a skip for one or two of them bands and they go in Polish. But the rest of the bands, that's it, they stay in the Panyard. So he started something called San Fernando Panorama. And unique in that competition that you had to do a tune 6 minutes, not your Panorama tune. So if it is that you played maybe a little for the Panorama, you had to come back and learn something else. So what would have happened in those years with Panasonic Connection? All right, after the Panorama, because they had Bradley, they had the Hollis. Those are the guys. I would have really banned under those guys. And after the Panorama, those guys go on the way, So I would have stayed and I would have done the tune. So 96, 7 going up the road, I would have done the work for them. So in 1998, we did a tune called Pan for Carnival for the San Fernando Panorama. And I won the San Fernando Panorama for the first time in 98. I went back in 1999. I did the Panorama tune that year for Panasonic for the first time as well. Right? They didn't make it to the second round, but we went back on the Panyard and we started practice for the San Fernando Panorama, where we won the San Fernando Panorama for the second time. That year I did Toko Band. So 2 years straight with Panasonic Connection, I won the San Fernando Panorama. So from there is where things started to develop, right? From 99, 2000, I went back. I have to laugh. In 2000, the band was then called Southern All Stars. It was run by a fellow called Caesar and Sonny Kent. Sonny Kent, one of the fellas who was responsible in the 70s for a lot of the Sailor Mass and whatnot. They were running All Stars at that time. And those guys, they called me to do All Stars that year. Southern All Stars in their band was there. So in 2000, I did Southern All Stars. Right? 2001, I did Mount Moriah Pan Movement. Right? I went up and worked with Kenny Richards and them at 2001. 2002, I went back by Panasonic Connection. They called me back. I did Panasonic Connection in 2002. 2003, I would have went into Florida Spain for the first time as an arranger together with Roger Charles, and we did a band on George Street called Blue Diamonds. So I would have flapped my wings out of the Southland and end up in Port of Spain in 2003. We did Blue Diamonds. We didn't do that well, but we made an impact. It was an impact enough that people would have started getting to know the name Sean Ramsey and Roger Charles in the pan world. So we'd have, I would have worked with them in 2003. 2004, I came back down south. I worked with Panasonic Connection together with Roger Charles. We made the finals. That is 2004, a year that we could look at in the year when they started the category, the categorized pan, small, medium, and large. So that year, the first year when they categorized the Panasonic Connection, would have placed 9th in that competition. You know, at the finals. Jamboree by Steve Silly, right? Roger Charles and Sean Ramsey. We placed 9th at that particular finals. So that was one of the first finals I would have made as an arranger in the conventional Pan arena, right? I stayed with Panasonic a few years after that, stayed with them and then within that time, something I did not mention, when I left Pleasantville Senior Comprehensive in 1993 after the Junior Festival, in 1994, right? Pleasantville had a new principal and they didn't have the PAN program, was not as, vibrant as how it used to be there. Mr. Griffith, he decided that, Clyde Griffith, that nothing wasn't happening with PAN. So Anthony Commercion, together with Pan Trinbago, started a competition called Pan Adoption. And that Pan Adoption competition would have started with a steel band in the San Fernando district adopting a school. So Pleasantville was adopted by Fontclair, alright? And you have Panasonic would have adopted Convent, Calomokings, feeding all the whole thing. They decided to go to San Fernando Senior Comprehensive. Alright, so when myself, that's what we will come to that. But we ain't jumping the gun yet. Mr. Sirinarayan Sigobin was the VP. When I went in there, myself and Colin Brayton,
Sigobin was vice principal.
Yeah, he was vice principal at Pleasantville. He was he was the vice principal in San Fernando. He was acting vice principal here actually, and then Pleasantville actually, and then he went across. Yeah. So when we went across here, he was so happy to see me. He asked me, he said, come across here, and I would have encountered discipline problems with children coming from Vesini, Faizabad, Point, and we need something like this to try to to bring back some form of discipline to the school. So we started the band as a summer program at Calomokings Spaniard, where we would have got some names and whatnot, and during the holidays they started to practice, and as school reopened that particular year, 1994, they started to walk from San Fernando Senior and Farrar Street and come across the Calomokings Spaniard, and this is how it started. Right? And the San Fernando Senior Comprehensive students would have stayed with Calomokings for about a 2 years span, and of course, again, as I told you earlier, part of our conversation, that I would have moved on to Panasonic Connection. So moving on to Panasonic Connection, Mr. Claude Byron, and his wisdom, he realized that here we're going on. I already had Convent in the yard here. I do have a problem adopting 2 schools because it will be beneficial to the band, especially around carnival time with regards to players, because we will want players. So he decided to take a particular a portion of his funds and send up to San Fernando Senior Comprehensive School, instead of the 2 schools clashing in the Panyard. And he would have donated some, because he had some hula instruments there, and we started to practice at San Fernando Senior Comprehensive Yard in 1996. 95, 96, somewhere around there. We started to practice there. So that's where the thing started in the school. And from there, it never looked back. because from there we started to get a little help, right? So we went into the pan adoption that year under Panasonic, placed second, and the following year, the last year pan adoption, 1997, we won the pan adoption. The last year it had pan adoption. So we'd have won the pan adoption in 1997. And also 1997 was the first year that San Fernando Senior Comprehensive went to the National Junior Music Festival, something that Pleasantville would have a rich history with. We would have went to the National Junior Music Festival under that said year and placed sixth with St. Augustine Girls High School. Right? So that year, 1997, together I asked Miss Conyett again, a rich history, to help me out. She came across to San Fernando Senior. She did the test piece. I did the tune of choice. That I'm the calypso. The calypso. Those days is calypso and a test piece. That day I did Clive Bradley's Party Tonight, and the band played 6 at the National Junior Music Festival in 1997. And from that year 97 to 2010, when I remember the last National Junior Music Festival, San Fernando Senior, then secondary, then San Fernando West, we never missed a finals, and it was always in the first 10. The band would have placed, the highest we placed was second, placed third twice. So we have a rich history at the National Junior Music Festival, where the band would have continued going there on, it's always a biennial, one every year, other year, since in Pleasantville, under your stewardship and Mr. Limak and Mr. Archie and thing, remember those years. You understand? One year, the following year, no festival, the following year, and that's how it continued. So we would have, took part in festival from 97 to 2010 when we will have the last Junior Music Festival. Over those years, all right, at the school there, we would have tried to build the band in all ways, you understand? We get pans donated from this, from different bands within San Fernando, all right? Panasonic might have been one, but there are other bands that, you look at because you're trying to build something on your own. And one of the things that, would have helped San Fernando Senior Comprehensive in those days was our eagerness to perform anywhere. And we started to perform where a lot of people realized that this band have a little potential and whatnot. So Pantrinbago would have asked us to play on the port. TDC had a program where they were taking a band from South, band from the East, band from the North, and we ended up getting ourselves involved in that because we were functional. All right, and this is we're talking about early, somewhere 2005, 2006, we started to, build the band. And we'd have got that type of, engagement where we started to build the band, you understand, get instruments, you understand, build our own instruments, and started to put ourselves in a particular way. To start to enter different competitions, like Junior Panorama, right? The band would have entered Junior Panorama for the first time in 2001, all right? And continue to take part in the Junior Panorama, until the band left the school, as we know we were getting to as time go along. But a very interesting thing happened in 2007 when I approached Mr. Das, Vishnu Das, who was the then principal at the school at that time. I approached him, I said, Mr. Das, I say, Junior Panorama, it's just taking us to one level. So what we do is just go Junior Panorama, and after that we come back and we go on the road for Carnival, and that's it. I say the band has reached a stage. I say if you look at what is going on here, a lot of the players, after Junior Panorama, they start to move across to Skiffle, Fontclair, these bands and whatnot. So you realize where I was coming. I say, you understand? And at that time I had joined for, we had Mr. Andrew Salvador. he had come into the band around that time. You understand? And we realized that this Junior Panorama thing alone wasn't cutting it. So we wrote Pantry and Bego a nice letter asking them to acknowledge us. Huh? Uh-huh. Yeah. So we went in to wrote Pantry and Bego and asked them to acknowledge us as Old Tech Steel Orchestra in 2007. And I got back a letter from Richard Photo, who was the secretary of Pantry and Bego at that time, giving us the all clear to enter the upcoming Panorama, which was 2008, in the small band category as Old Tech Steel Orchestra. So a bit of history there again. One of the first bands, we have bands like Song Specialists of Laventil, Serenaders, and of course our own Skipper Bunch, who moved from singer pan and went into conventional, pan wrong neck, and gone into conventional. But unique enough, San Fernando Secondary moved from school into the national arena. So it's something that we would have started and others follow. So from 2007, the band, from May 30th, 2007, the band was known as Old Tech Steel Orchestra, entering the 2008 National Panorama as Old Tech Steel Orchestra, and from 2008 to present, Old Tech have been on the national landscape, in the sense of Panorama, Borody, Laventil Street Festival, just name it. The band has been involved in a lot of activities, At a time, a good friend of mine in the North, he asked me if, you understand, he said, all like salt, all in everything.
That Old Tech you're talking about, did it have any connection with San Fernando Technical Institute?
No. What happened is, when I approached Patrick Arnold, he said, Sean, you have to look for a name. He said San Fernando Secondary Comprehensive, ain't cutting it. So when I looked at different names, I spoke to my tuner at that time, God bless his soul, Mr. Winston Gill. He said, sure. He said, Ramsey, he said, I did a band long time called Southern Symphony. I said, I didn't want to use nobody. I said, then Teenage Symphony came to my mind because I was using a lot of teenagers. And a good, a guy who have a high position in Pantry, we go south right now, he threatened to sue me. I ain't gonna call his name. He said that he found the band. He said if I use that name, he will sue me. So I can't use that name. So I said, all right, me again, I said that. So I dig deep. I said, but wait now. I say Old Tech is just a matter of speech. This school is not, you understand, people calling here Old Tech because here used to be Technical Institute. I said, that isn't the name of our school. I say it's the matter, the area, hey, we are going on by Old Tech. The Sapaka and Sandoval, Old Tech, I'm going by Old Tech. So I say, all right, Old Tech it is. So that's why I come up with OLDTECH, Old Tech Steel Orchestra. And of course, the rest is history. We band based there, and Mr. Gosai, Mr. Sigobin, Ms. Hassan Ali, Mr. Das, these people who would have passed through there.
Friday.
Yeah. Ms. Friday was a dean while I was there. You understand? She would have acted vice principal once or twice, I think, but she went to Barrackpore and then went to San Fernando East. But she was, she was always supportive, but she was never in the administration level as Miss Hassan Ali and Mr. Das and Sigobin and Hussein and these fellas. And Mr. Hussein, you would have, seen him behind the barn on a carnival Monday and Tuesday. He would have been in the barn, on the road. They had always had that support. So we continued. And as you know, the band would have took part in national panoramas, making a few finals as well. The band has a lot of awards. You understand? When you go to the school there, up in the office, there's a lot of trophies with regards to best playing college on the road, 5 years straight. We went to Marabella Carnival Committee. We won their competition about twice. You understand? Coming on the road, we have a lot of trophies with bomb competitions in San Fernando. You understand? Junior Panorama, Junior Festival, the works. You understand? So we would have taken part in the National Panorama, then, borrow the, you understand, Pan and the Avenue. We beat. Next greater experience in St. James. We started to go to We Beat in 2009 under the banner of Ansa Makal group of companies, Mr. Peter Rizende, right? We would have took part in that We Beat 2009, 2010 under Burmack and Mr. Crosby, Earl Crosby. Yeah, God bless his soul. He fell in love with the band, and from that year to present, Old Tech have been a part of the We Beat experience. Every year we have been up there. So we came like family in the We Beat, you understand, circle as well too. So we have, continued to make inroads in different, shows and competitions all over the country. Alright? So we reached to a stalemate where the band would have, after all these years, in the San Fernando West, earlier named San Fernando Senior Comprehensive, would have been asked by the principal in 2017 at first to leave the school compound. And from August 2017 to when you came on the school compound late in 2018, it was an uphill challenge in the sense that it was always a letter. You understand? You're sending a letter to the band, you have to leave, and eventually you take the pants and you put them to the back of the school where the bands was dumped, and we had hatters coming to our rescue, and we end up down by hatters for a little while until His Worship the Mayor came to our rescue, Mr. Junior Regalo, and at present we are now at the corner of Pleasantville Circular and Shakonia Avenue in Pleasantville. We are presently that's our home. We are trying very, very, much to, close by the health center there. So we have built a structure there so far, but eventually, of course, funding, so, and then the COVID-19 came in, so we had to, a lot of our building programs and our ideas had to be shelved in the sense that, now we have, this COVID in the place, so the band, just like any other band, eagerly waiting for that particular time to start back. We have a nice little membership here within the Pleasantville district. All right, we have a nice stage side, and we are eagerly waiting to start back to practice. As time can develop us, So, with regards to, yeah.
Okay, Sean, you came all the way from Citrus.
Yeah.
And your achievement is so amazing. Are you a twin or something? One man can do all this.
Well, coming from the country, I always have that strong background, but I always had that love for music, and coming to San Fernando, right, and meeting guys like Roger Charles and Darren Shepard, Curtis Marcel, all right, these fellas and them, have a lot of inspiration. Wade Austin, he's in England now. Yeah, a lot of fellas, I would have been around in those early stages. Good friends of mine. Actually, when I left Citrus in 1982 and came into San Fernando, living in the Austin Street area, as you know, that is the area that we known as the Hole. You understand? Where Fontclair, is resident in that particular area, right? Austin Street, not too far from Dutton Street, and even not too far from where the band got their name, Funrose and Clare Street, right? So, and Austin Street is a street that I think, based on history, they would have named after the Austin family. You understand? That's the Daddy Lai, Wire's family, and them. They were in that area when I came into San Fernando.
As your street naming, could you explain to our listening audience how did Fontclair get its name?
Fontclair got his name with youths from the area, Funrose and Clare Street. And if I remember, the information that would have passed through, and the knowledge I would have, is Milton Wire Austin, Hatem Lala, the Swanson brothers, right? Nolly Huggins, and a host of other fellas which you think in the area. Dwight's father, I think they call him Golab.
Golab.
Yeah.
Definitely.
These are some of the names that would have come in. But when I joined Fontclair in 1987, late 1987.
The soldier was just very years ago.
Yeah, great experience with that guy. Henrik Lakatu. In fact, I remember as a young boy joining Fontclair. My mom, if you remember, my mom is she's retired now, she's a police officer, and she was always strict with discipline. And Lakatu had to come up my stairs at time to talk to her and say, hey, don't take out Sean from the band side, Sean, and come and talk to her and whatnot. So hats off to Lakatu. God was so he's one of the one of my inspiration, in the sense of coming into our household to make sure and give my mom that kind of inspiration to keep me within the band.
No, everyone has an icon, whatever field. Who is Sean Ramsey's icon in life?
I think when you talk to most of the guys within the area that would have passed through Pleasantville, will have always been Ken Professor Fillmore, and we started on that guy. That guy had a lot of what we would like about him. He was always willing to teach you something. You understand? He never kept it inside and was selfish. He always would call you and show you something. He was that kind of person.
He was love.
Yeah.
He would always give you
always. He always will give you that that motivation that You know, in fact, I know I remember a few years he would have come across to San Fernando West Secondary School when my tune was completed. And you will come and you will sit down and you will listen and you will tell me, yeah, you're going right. Come a few times and, you know, just to keep you, hey, come to do anything in the music, you know. You come in to make sure that, you know, what you hear, and, you know, it's up to mark. If you did that a few years, well, you would have come and that same brother Laka too would have come 1 or 2 of the years with him as well too. You'd have come across before he go down by Fontclair, listen to what we would have come in close to the panorama. Those years we would have gone in TML car park. So it would have been easy because we didn't have all that space in the compound. So we really pants down to the back. Where you would have, you know, come to do the judging more or less, you know, when it had pioneer judging, you would have come down there a few times, well. Yes? So when we go down there, I'll inform him and say, hey, we go to my TML tonight. You understand? From this evening, we go down there and we're going to start to get that out here feel. And you will come down and you will listen to what the band, you know, put out and whatnot.
Yeah. Have you any regrets in life?
No, I think, you know that's a question, you know.
Everyone,
nothing will come to mind of, you know, of fun, but you know, basically, you know, you have a lot of, you know, things to give thanks for, you know, to be, you know, grateful for life, you know, and of course, you know, thank God for teaching me, you know, to be a musician, to be able to come and to share that knowledge and that type of, you know, experience with young people, and to keep them in a particular, you know, way out of trouble and whatnot. And that is what some of my, you know, because over the years, a lot of players would have passed through my hands, you know, who would have passed through Skiffle, Fontclair, and several bands, you know, even starting with Pleasantville back in '93 with people like Hinia, Kalis, and there's Denisha Gulcharan, Brielle Scott. Alright, there's a lot of players who would have passed through and they are doing pretty well right now, you know.
The Ministry of Education went through a transition. We had junior set, we had senior set, then we had Pleasantville secondary, which is concurrent. Have you been involved in each one?
Pleasantville secondary, I am presently the safety officer there right now, coming back there, you understand, in a more professional basis in the sense of, you know, working. I'm now, you know, I was transferred from Princeton Secondary 2020 to Pleasantville Secondary. I'm now the health and safety officer based at my old school. Right? So in a professional basis, you know, I'm now working at Pleasantville Secondary School.
So Dr. Philip, would you like to ask Sean a question? Okay, so while we wait till Kenya, what about Sandfest? Have you been involved in this annual event? Hosted by the National Gas Company of TNT?
Yeah, I won 3 Sandfests with San Fernando West. One with Marabella South Secondary, and 2 with San Fernando Girls Anglican School. I laughed a bit just now there because I remember in 2005, I entered that competition, and the teachers at Marabella South, up to now when they see me, they say himself beat himself. Because 2005, Marabella South Secondary School playing Pan Rising beat San Fernando West Secondary School into 2nd position. So I beat myself. I did two schools that year, San Fernando West and working at Marabella South. Miss Forbes was the principal. When I got appointed at the school as the safety officer, she said, "You come from a rich pan background, you have to do my Sandfest tune, my husband said, keep telling me I have to do the Sandfest tune." So she went by Southern Marines in Marabella and get some pan borrow. Yeah, and she had some pans here as well, but she didn't have much. And they went and get some pans borrowed from by Mr. Smith, who he was a member of the school board. Yeah, son, Everton Smith, I think you remember that? Yeah. Okay. And he would have a close connection with Southern Marines, and he went and get some pans. And they bring pans and made an announcement. All who have pan experience, I got some players from within Southern Marines, Elders and Antillean All-Stars. And some young players, who didn't have no experience as well, where I would have trained. And they went to that competition and they won it. So Sandfest, I did a few Sandfest competitions. Steve Porter of San Fernando West Secondary School, he won the pan soloist in Sandfest with Slave. You can go back there, it's on YouTube. He won it a few years well. In Pleasantville, I did it while at Pleasantville in 1993 when we were in festival that year. I did Walt Richardson as Wentworth's brother. He made the finals. Yeah, that's Brent's brothers too. I think Walt passed away. Walt would have played a tune by Natasha Wilson. I can't remember the name of the tune, but I remember giving him that tune for the Sandfest soloing competition as well too. So I did some work with Sandfest as well. Sandfest. I did a lot of work in Sandfest. Going up to Princestown as a safety officer as well. I did 2 or 3 years with them. Going up there, Miss Garcia. Yeah, so she was a VP at that school. She, just like Miss Forbes, realizing that I have that pan background. And Princess Song never, and Miss Fraser, she was the music teacher up there, Bernadette Fraser. They always wanted to go into Sandfest, but never got the opportunity to because they didn't have somebody to give them that drive there. So they asked me while I was up there to help them out. So while I was at Princess Song Secondary as the safety, I did the Sandfest music for the group as well. So I did some. They didn't really, because Princess Song not been really a pan, but they have some students here who have a little idea, but they did pretty well in the little time that also.
So, with all this work you're doing, are you literate in music? Can you read a score? How do you manage?
Well, basically, and thanks to Ms. Conyat, and I have generally basic idea of the score reading, generally, if you put a score in front of me, I mean to say I would not, see that, I can't identify, but I can handle myself with regards to, the more minus, reading of a score, I have an idea because of the early knowledge of music, right?
So, so in conclusion, there are a lot of young fellas just lining on the block every day. If you had to send a message to them, what would it be?
Gravitate pioneer close to you and get to learn the national instrument. It's an instrument that you will eventually love. Yeah. Gravitate pioneer closest to you and get to learn our national instrument. Right? Go and help your area.
You not shoot right now. You could go home, my wife is there. Okay? Okay, I'm not home, but somebody's home, okay?
Yeah, Yeah, get into your area where there's a steel orchestra, get involved. And this is something, a lot of people fail to realize, that a steel band is one of the most important social centers in some of these rural areas. You go into those, you understand, in fact, that is what I would like to see happen with Old Tech Steel Orchestra. Once, finance it could come our way, that we could have an area in our pania to teach skills, welding, cookery, you understand, fabric designing and things. So it will keep that interest level with regards to education. It's something that we want to see happen at the Old Tech Steel Orchestra as well too. We were looking to try to see if anybody could assist us with a prefab room, to start a homework center. Because we have Mr. Richard Smith, teacher, Mr. Kubir Rambasad, teacher, who are, as we speak, doing online teaching with our students during the holidays here in physics and in maths. So while bands are, not actually in the panyard with their sticks and in the pans, we are helping our students in maths and physics. And we are trying to, as we move into the next phase, because of good God, we know that things will happen. And once we get back into some form of normalcy, we would like to see something happening at Pleasantville with regards to helping the students and the Pleasantville government, San Fernando East Pleasantville sector where we are located. Orchid Gardens, Current Hills, whoever interested to come to our panyard and learn the instrument.
Okay, Sean, Ramsey, Mr. Panman, it was nice chatting with you.
Nice chatting with you as well, man.
And see you in another place another time.
By God's grace, I thank you again.
Au revoir.
Yeah, man.